we could fly.
Welcome back to Have a Cup of Johnny. This season isn't about hustling harder. It's about coming home to yourself, to your voice, to your breath, to the quiet truth that you're still here and you're not starting over. You're starting again. This is your space to reflect, reset, and remember who the hell you are. So pour your cafecito and let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Have a Cup of Johnny. Just reeling from celebrating my birthday. As you may have heard me, or if you follow me on social media, you will see those tags on the show notes, by the way. You know that I celebrate my birthday from August 1st all the way to August 31st. That is just something that I do. I feel birthdays are very special. And I like to take that time to celebrate me because I know there will be future days, future upcoming months where I'm going to feel like I'm not worthy to be celebrated. So I take advantage of this month to do so. And I have those moments that I did to look back and to be held as a reminder that I am worthy of happiness, I am worthy of joy, I am worthy of celebration. So just, food for thought for you. If you're wondering if it's a good thing for you to do, I highly recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. Celebrate you as much as you can. All right. Okay. September, though, because we're in September, I took a few days to think about what the theme will be for this month. And September always comes to me with smells of pencils, of classrooms, those creaky chairs when you sit on them, of dry erase boards, it just, it reminds me of education. So I'm like, you know what? This month, I want to talk about what higher education taught me. And I'm not talking about like scholarly lessons. Maybe some of that may leak in there, but that's not the focus. I'm talking about life lessons. Okay. What that execution of that decision to go into higher education and through all those micro phases of my life, as I got an associate's, a bachelor's, and later on a master's, what they taught me. I want to share that with you this month of September. I hope y'all are ready for this. All right, we're going to start with this episode because this episode, I'm going to focus on leaving. This episode, I'm going to tackle that first step out of the house, right? Leaving, staying, do I go, me voy, me quedo, what do I do? And how sometimes those two things can happen at the exact same time. That sounds very confusing, but let's begin. All right, y'all. When I was 15, going on 16, and I did started college early, I was skipped a grade. So I went into that phase of my life a little earlier than most people. So when I got to be 16, all I wanted to do was to leave my house. I was very constricted there. By then, I was living with my mom. She was holding on to me tight. And I know part of that was just her protecting me. But I also know, because I have to be honest, right, that it was also about having me there so I can help with certain responsibilities in the house. Particularly, I was caring for my grandmother who had immigrated to the United States. She was a woman that raised me while I was still in the Dominican Republic with her before I was able to get papers and come to live with my mom. And after a few years of being in the States, my grandmother got really sick. She was battling cancer. And I was just a kid, you know, but at that age, yes, I was a kid, but I wasn't thinking of myself as a kid. I was thinking of myself as being like this pre-grown up that was ready to start my life, to get out of that pod. It just felt so constricted, so much pressure there, like I didn't have room to breathe. And I just felt like I couldn't do the things that I want. I was going to school, I was living in my mom's house, and I couldn't do much there except for do chores and then be at the hospital so I can stay there with my grandmother who needed someone to translate for her, and also like a personal nurse of sorts, because the nurses there didn't know how to speak Spanish. We were in Massachusetts, and to ask for a translator just took more time to get things done. So at one point during my childhood, I was living in the hospital, and my mom was picking me up from there to go to school, and then I'll go back there. You see, so I think that was part of the reason why I wanted to get away. Looking back at that, though, there's some guilt there as well, because this is my grandma, y'all. Like, this is the woman that raised me, and I feel guilty when I think back about wanting to leave, because wanting to leave meant me leaving my grandma behind as well. So it's like I'm always so conflicted whenever I think about that time, because I'm like, I just wanted to be me, but then I didn't want to leave my grandma behind, but I ended up leaving her behind anyways to go to college. Eventually, while I was there, though, she did get out of the hospital, but after I left, she got sick, and as with cancer, right? It's like when it comes back, it just comes back worse, and it came back really bad. She got a little bit better, and then she ended up just wanting to go back to the Dominican Republic because, she was like, if I'm going to die, I'd rather die in my home country. And then we did as she wished. And eventually, I want to say like close to a year after that, she ended up dying. To this day is still something that I haven't really fully grasped, because I don't allow myself to think too much about that. This is the most I've talked about it, to be honest with you. But yeah, but before all of that happened, I was just a kid spending a lot of my junior and senior year in the hospital, not because I was sick, but to help my grandmother, to the point where once I graduated, I was like, let's go. Let me get out of here already. And I did get accepted to UMass Amherst, but my mom was like, no, that's too far away. You need to be closer to the house. So that way I can help out, and be close in case I needed to go back home for whatever. And I was like, okay, I said, okay, but that's the thing with me, right? Even if I say okay and I'm not truly okay with it, even though I do it, my heart is not going to be in it. And that's what happened. I ended up going to the local community college, and while I had fun there, I did meet some great people, and some really great things happened. Like I had my first boyfriend. I became part of the third world society. Well, I met other people from marginalized identities like me, right? And I got into a writing class, even though that was not my major, because my mom didn't want me to major in writing because she said that you cannot make any money off of writing. So even that, right? My heart was not into the nursing thing. But in this writing class, the professor, she saw one of my papers that I had written, and she got in front of class and she was like, there's some of you that have exceptional talent, and then she handed me my paper and she was like, that's you, young lady. And I will never like forget that moment. I was like, wow, it was such a validating moment, so while like I was trying to get away, I felt restricted. And then there was like so many other things that were pressuring me and stressing me out during that time. There were like these pockets of joy that occur there that I'm able to look back and was like, okay. So, after everything is said and done, like some good came out of all of that. And I'm also very grateful as well that I listened to my mom and I stuck around and I didn't get that very far during that time because I got to spend more time with my grandmother and I was able to be there until she became a little bit more stable. And we all thought like she would come out of all of it, right? From that point forward and she wouldn't relapse and because she overcame the cancer during that time frame. So we were all so very hopeful. So all those great things were happening during that time. So it's not all bad, right? And maybe things were just meant to be this way because I got to learn so much from that. I got to learn that sometimes the very thing you're desperate to escape from, whether it's caregiving or the pressure of family or being the kid who feels trapped in their own home, ends up being that soil where your roots are planted. You know, my grandmother loves books. She used to love books, I should say. And I got to spend more time with her. And to this day, I am so grateful that it happened that way, that in a way I was able to give back to her everything that she gave to me because she was the woman that taught me how to read and write. So through her, I am this author that I am now. I'm this expressive person that can express myself through writing, through podcasting, and I can read and escape and just have these joyful moments in the pages of books. Through that, I found the encouragement of that professor in my writing class that fueled me and continues to fuel me to this day, and even my mom saying no to UMass, when I look at it, is still a blessing, it all shaped me. So leaving, but not really leaving, staying, it's isn't always physical. It's emotional. And sometimes the lessons don't show up until years later, when you realize you carry those gifts with you all along. And that's the thing, right? That I take away. That's why I love talking to y'all. And even though it's so hard to look back at some of these moments and just be super, super vulnerable in this room in front of this mic, it helps to see that even in the toughest moments, like this time was very tough for me. And there was other things happening as well that was just making my life super tough at that time. But I'm able to see, like I said, those pockets of joy that occurred to me in the face of darkness. There was sunshine there, you know, and through that, I was able to like come up for breath before diving back in into those muddy waters where I couldn't even see in front of me. And then it was another joyful moment. Teacher told me something. Oh, I'm breathing now, up again. And then I go back down. My grandma gets sick, go into the hospital. I stay there. And it's just, that's how life is. We have these moments that are really tough, really stressful. And then we have these other ones that are just delightful, that are light, that are joy. And you're able to see that once you kind of recollect and go back in time and are able to be introspective about it. But something else besides time and how hindsight is 2020 that I learned during that time is that I feel that I was too immature for college at that time. I'm just going to be brutally honest. And I'm kind of happy that I didn't go to UMass Amherst because I feel like the debt that I would have gotten myself into would have been way bigger than the debt that I incurred at the community college. I came out with a lot of debt from that. Read The Ordinary Bruja, because the reason why I made Marisol a barista who's a college dropout is because I lived it. This is my story. This is what I'm telling you. Like Marisol, and I think I gave her that line where she's like, I just didn't even finish college and I came out like thousands of dollars poorer and then with this diploma shaped hole in my life. And that's how I felt. That's how I felt when I left college because I just couldn't hack it. No, you got to understand, I was like a 16-year-old kid. I turned 17. I had been held so tight in my home that I didn't have the life skills to be autonomous. I didn't have any of those skills, how to keep time, how to keep a schedule, how to be self sufficient, how to create my own day where I can get things done and also like have fun. And I think that's where procrastination began as well. And like I said, to this day, I'm a recovering procrastinator. It started there, but I know now that it's more like this perfectionistic trauma that I had because I just feel that if it's not perfect, I don't want to release things because I fear rejection and humiliation off of that. So that those are things that I have to work on. But also back then, I didn't have the skills to maintain a day schedule. And I felt as if I use my time to do schoolwork, to do the things that I had to do, I would not get any fun time because at home, there wasn't no fun time. All the time that I had was just time to do chores, be with my grandma in the hospital. I can steal some time away and then I'll find things to do. I will go to the library, go hide in the closet with a book and read a book. And my mom will get really mad because she's like, why are you reading in this dark room and stuff like that? You're going to ruin your eyes and things of that nature. So I used to get yelled at even for reading a book, but that's another episode. You see what I'm saying? But so I learned to steal time to be able to have joy, to escape. So when I found myself on my own with all this time, I didn't want to give any of it up. I didn't. I was like, I don't know when this will happen again. So all I did was have fun. I barely got up for morning classes. I barely put in time for my schoolwork, for studying, for the exams. And then what hurted me a lot too was that it's not like in high school or in middle school or in elementary where you have a teacher that reminds you when things are due or that gives you second chances on a quiz and things of that nature. I needed a lot of reminding growing up so that way I can stay on top of my things. And when all of that went away and I was left on my own, then I just kind of flopped. Because also the environment that I came in, like my mom didn't teach me those things. And in school, it's like you're prodded, just prodded through every class, through everything. So then when you don't have that person or that system prodding you any longer, and you find yourself with no prod, you just like, wow, te quedas ahí. You flop, you stay there because you don't know what else to do. So that was my first college experience. So looking back at it, now I know that I was very not prepared. I was unprepared. I was not mature enough. I didn't have the life skills that I needed. I look back at that time, especially when I saw my son getting ready to embark on college as well. And I remember having this conversation with him about how he needs to learn how to keep his time. And I gave him some tips on how I do it. So that way, if he wants to adopt those things for his own life and then way of being, he could. I remember making like the conscious effort to step out while giving him the safety net of our home to try it out, to try to create his own day, his own schedule, his own calendar. And I'm glad I did that. Like He's not the best at it to this day. And I don't know, I guess it's something maybe about me, about us, where it just takes us a while to rev up, to get that maturity going to where we're like, okay, we are adjusted. We have schedules, we have timing, we have things to where we can produce certain stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's genetic and he gets it from me. But thankfully now at his age, he's in his early 20s, he is able to do it way better than how I did it when I was his age. Way, way better. So that to me is a win. Little by little, he's progressing. He has some things he needs to work on. We have our chats about it. But when I look back at me and when I look at my son right now, I'm like, okay, good. He's not where I was at that point, which makes me feel a whole lot better. But yeah, that is what I learned, that I was not ready. I was not prepared. Even though I wanted to be outside of my home, I was not ready. And how I pivot and change that trajectory was through my son, by giving him the things that were not giving to me, by inculcating in him a sense of scheduling and timing, giving him autonomy, just giving him the safety net to try and fail. So that way, when he found himself in college, I mean, that freshman year was rough for him. We're not going to sugarcoat that one, but it wasn't as rough as my failed freshman year. You see what I'm saying? So it was a good progression. I learned my lesson. My son, he have trampoline from my mistakes. But if you're listening to me and if you're listening to this and then you find yourself either in the mom aspect of this or in the young adult aspect of this, just know that there are ways to overcome this. Take a breath. First of all, just take a deep breath and then figure out, one, your constraints, and two, why they are there. Because there's always a reason behind our our stress, behind our like our pressure that we're feeling. There's always a reason there. So figure out why that is there. It may be that you're putting some things off. It may be that you have this family member or this friend on your neck trying to make you do things that you're not ready to do. Whatever it is, figure out why that is there and then do something about it. Do something about it so that way you can go ahead and step, because that's all that you need to do. Because I feel like when you have these things in life that are pressuring you, constricting you, they're not allowing you to move forward. So first you have to identify what it is, and then you have to figure out how you can overcome those things within your own set of resources, your own set of circumstances. There's always a way. That's what I found. Even in my darkest moments, in my most constricted or resourceless moments, there was always something that I can do. That's something that I found out by looking back. And at times it was as simple as just taking a breath, going to the closet with a fun book. So that way I can just take it all off of my shoulders. Sometimes it was just a walk. I remember I lived in the dorms that were up a hill. That's where they put all the freshmen, there in Worcester State College. And sometimes it was just that, just to USA. Sometimes it was going to a party with my friends or talking to my friends. And sometimes it was that. Sometimes it was writing. That writing class really always lifted my spirits up. Or sometimes it's just quitting. I hate to say it that way, but sometimes that's what it is. Sometimes there are things that you're doing that just don't serve you anymore or don't serve you for that time being. And for me, that's what happened when I realized I was wasting my money, I was wasting my time in a place where I was not growing. I was just stagnant. I was just like partying for the sake of partying, but I wasn't moving forward. And I'm glad I was mature enough to realize that even as a teenager, because I was still 17. And I was like, you know what? I need to pivot. I need to do something else. I saw a recruiter. I took advantage of the opportunity that he gave me, and I joined the army. And that was like my pivot. That was the other door that opened for me. And then I just like boom, just like bolted through that door. So, next episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about that door and how I found myself back again in the higher education, although in a very different scenario and with a very different version of me. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions of me, don't feel shy. Hit me up. My email is joa, Joa, at haveacupofjoanny.com. I will put that on the show notes, and I will put my social media ats on the show notes as well. So if you want to leave a comment or chat with me through my social media handles, you can. But I welcome your comments and your feedback as long as they're not trolly. I will answer them. All right. See you on the next episode. Bye.
Oh, we could fly.
If today's episode spoke to you, share with somebody who's finding their way back too. And if you haven't yet, visit haveacupofjoanny.com for more stories, blog posts, and the books that started it all. Thank you for being here. Until next time, be soft, be bold, and always have a cup of Johnny.